Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here, and welcome to the continuing deep dive into the depths of Shadows of Brimstone. And we're at the home stretch now, and we have finally come to it. And that is the one that everybody has been waiting for, and that is, of course, Hexcrawl. So, Hexcrawl. Out of all of the fan-made expansions for any game I have ever played, Hexcrawl is by far the best. This is the best fan-made expansion for any game I know of, by like orders of magnitude. So much so that I will not play Shadows of Brimstone without it. There's no point to. This expansion takes Shadows of Brimstone, which is a good game, and elevates it to a masterpiece status. It elevates it to a great game, a fantastic game. I cannot say enough good things about Hexcrawl. Now I know people are out there really wanting Hexcrawl for Forbidden Fortress, but you know what? I'm playing my Forbidden Fortress stuff just with Hexcrawl. I am using the Hexcrawl or the Forbidden Fortress stuff with the Belly of the Beast, the fortress itself, the Forest of the Dead, and in my set that I'm playing with, the Blasted Wastes and the Canyons. I am just using those as other fantastic other worlds that have seeped into the Old West. There are portals leading to these weird eastern lands. There are portals leading to apocalyptic lands, the Badlands, which are already in here. And so my characters just happen to be in a Western overworld. And I have no issues playing with like that. And I won't play without Hexcrawl because Hexcrawl makes this game so damn good. So this is the core Hexcrawl adventure book, which has all of your rules, and this is also the Hexcrawl encounters book, which has all your random encounters bound together, spiral bound together, and then I had the covers laminated. And altogether, this cost me about $8 to put together, not including the paper. I have these reams of really nice paper, so I printed everything on really nice paper. I printed in black and white. You can download everything in a single zip file from BGG under the City of the Ancients Shadows of Brimstone listing. And the author, the creator, made it so that the PDF has layers, so you can turn on and off the backgrounds, you can turn on and off the text, and you can turn on and off the art. So it is just a fantastically put together piece of content. It's so good, it's so phenomenal, and elevates Shadows of Brimstone to such a high level that I am consistently blown away that Flying Frogs, that they just haven't purchased this and made it their campaign. Because I guarantee you, whatever the frogs come up with is going to be just a pale comparison to Hexcrawl. Whatever they come up with for their campaign is not going to be anywhere near this good. There's no way it can be, because this, at best, it's going to be as good, but then it's just going to cost money. You can get this for free, so it's not going to be any better, and just stick with this. So it was created by Graham Hansen, who goes by Pattern on BGG, and Sid Rain, and he has some other information on this first page here. So what is Hexcrawl? Hexcrawl is an overland map that you explore. Like I've mentioned this before, that this is like my dream game, right? Having an overland that you explore, and then when you land on a certain space, you go down into the dungeon. Well, that is this game, and it is so well done. So you have a map that represents the surrounding areas of Brimstone. And I had this printed off at Home Depot, or not Home Depot, Office Depot, on really nice poster paper. Just a color copy of the Hexcrawl portion of the map. So you have your whole overland. And on this overland are mines. So that is where your missions, your quest, your dungeon crawls are going to happen. You also have these red dots, which are different frontier settlements and villages. And then you have these forts, which are also settlements. You have different kinds of environments like forests and hills and swampy areas. You have rivers, roads, and railroads. And this is the world in which you will be exploring as you are completing missions for your quest objective and for the different types of campaigns that you might want to play. Because in this rule book, there are basically kind of 4 different types of campaigns that you can play. And we will go over those. So this is just a game contents and overview. It tells you a little bit about what Hexcrawl is. Hexcrawl is an expansion to Shadows of Brimstone that takes your adventures out from the mines and other worlds that the heroes are used to exploring and out into the wild, untamed region around the ruins of Brimstone. Heroes will be able to travel around these lands and visit new towns in search of lucrative jobs and dangerous missions. So it goes on to explain your overland map. And then it introduced one of the best concepts, and that is the persistent towns. So as you visit different towns in this game, you are going to keep a detailed list of the locations in that town, maybe the bounties that you can take in that town, the jobs and the missions that the town is offering. And then you are also going to keep track of any of the locations that have been destroyed for any reasons, any of the towns that have been destroyed, what kind of town it is, what traits it has. Is it next to a railroad? Is it next to a river? And this is going to be your living world that you are going to be in for your entire campaign. You also have a mine tracker, which is the same. There are 20 different mine locations in the overland, and you are going to keep track of what type of, of other world it goes to. If you are playing certain type of campaign, you are going to keep track of if the mine has been overrun, if it's active, if it's sealed or destroyed, because one of the kinds of campaigns in here is you basically have to go and you have to either seal or destroy all 20 mines, and that is how you win the campaign. I rarely play like that. I usually play a sandbox campaign, and we will go over some of that in a minute, or probably in the next episode. So you have a jobs board, which when you are in town, there is a D100 listing of small little side quests that you can take that will take you all over the map in search of different things. While you are doing that, you can actually have little skirmish encounters on overland territories, and you can print some of these out to have little maps that you'll be able to move around as you are exploring. You might be ambushed by some bandits or maybe some mutant creatures or something. So as you take these jobs, there's also the potential for a job to actually lead in to a bigger mission, as you might have to go to one location, search for something, and then maybe that will give you a clue that you will have to go to a mine to complete a larger mission. There is a whole new system of wilderness and terrain encounters. So the wilderness encounters, those happen when you are out and you're searching during a job or a mission, and depending on the type of terrain you are in, you will have an encounter, and those encounters are a little more complex. It also has terrain encounters. The terrain encounters, that's what I was just explaining. The wilderness encounters, those take the place of your travel hazards. So every day that your posse is exploring, at the beginning of each day, you will do a roll to see what kind of wilderness encounter you will have as you are traveling. And you can use the wilderness encounters that are in this book. You can use any of the travel hazards that you have in your core sets or your Frontier Town expansion. Or, and we will take a closer look at this, but this was recently put together, and this is the Ultimate Travel Hazard Old West Companion Book. And this was put together by a guy named Nuno de Sa, and you can get this on, if you just search for the Ultimate Shadows of Brimstone Ultimate Travel Hazard. If you search for that on Facebook, you will find the group, and you can download this PDF. And it contains something like over 500 different travel hazards. And it combines new travel hazards. I think it combines some of the stuff from the wilderness encounters here. And it also combines some of the official entries from the core sets and the Frontier Town expansion. And so this is also a super valuable asset to have at your disposal. So there are new actions you can take in the Overland. There are new things that certain keywords of your heroes will allow you to do. There are new enemies included. Now, I do not print out the enemy sheets. I just have those as PDFs on my Kindle. And so some of the charts and stuff I use as PDFs. There will be charts because there will be new things that you can buy in all of the locations for Hexcrawl. New encounters you can have in the town. Like, so here are new things you can purchase at the blacksmith. There's a new street market with stuff you can buy. Advanced gear and services at the doctor's office, the blacksmith, the saloon, Frontier Outpost. And then you will come to these terrain cards. So I really don't like printing out cards and making cards. So like I was saying, I would just, if I was going to use any of these terrain elements, I would just assign that like a 1 through 9 and then roll a d10. And if I rolled on one, then I could look at that card and figure out what I needed to do. And then you get your human threat table. So this kind of expands the idea that there are other human people living in the surrounding area of Brimstone. And when you are faced with a human threat, well, then you can roll on this table and you can figure out if you're going to be facing against villains or lackeys, thugs, henchmen, bandits, that kind of thing. And then all of their character cards I just keep on this, on my Kindle. So that way they're in color. I did try to print these out, but I didn't like the way they printed out. I was having a hard time getting the resolution right, but I'm sure somebody who's better at like this kind of DIY stuff will have no issue, but I don't mind just keeping them as digital files. So there are some adjusted rules about ending an adventure because, in the other game you end an adventure and that's kind of it. But in this game, when you come up from the surface of a mine, well, you're still playing. You're still in this overworld exploring. And so there are some different ways of how you're going to keep track of your health and your sanity as you go from job to job. There are certain items and powers in the game of Shadows of Brimstone that say, once per adventure or once per mission. Well, it kind of explains how that time period is tracked now. It is important while you are playing Hexcrawl to keep track of time because certain things will happen in certain days. So you have your months and then you have your days, and you might have a job that says you have to go to a certain location, search and rescue a kidnapped kid. You have 12 days to do it. So it is very important to keep track of time as it progresses in your campaign. It tells you what a job is, what is considered a mission or a town visit, a town stay, and then a couple other rules for different keywords and different heroes. And then we go into detail about the overland map, a little bit of the scale of the hex for the Hexcrawl, the different types of terrain, and how much movement points it takes to move in different terrains. And then basically during a day, you have, if your posse is on horseback, all of your posse is on a horseback. And when you start Hexcrawl, everybody starts with a basic mount. You get 6 movement points every day. And at the beginning of the day, you're going to roll to see if you have an encounter that day. If you do, you're going to face that encounter. Then you'll move on. If you don't, you're just going to move on. And then you have 6 movement points. And the movement points can be spent on moving from one location to the next. They can be spent on searching. And when you search, you're going to search your hex, and you're going to take your search tokens that you would use in the normal game, and you're just going to draw one, and then that's going to tell you what is going to happen if you are attacked, or if you find clues that you're looking for, or if you find certain things. All of the symbols on these will tell you different things that you will encounter if you are searching. You can rest, you can press on, and you can camp. And you can also, there are different keywords. So all of those keywords that the heroes have, like frontier or holy, law, mutant, outlaw, science, scout, well, all of those keywords have actions associated with them that you can spend movement points on to do something while you are exploring. So it really does go a long way to making your characters feel even more special. For instance, if you are a science keyword, you can do field surgery. If you are a scout, you can scout ahead. If you are a performer, you can do a traveling act. And so all of these will have different elements that you can use depending on which character you are. It goes into explaining your encounters, your wilderness encounters, your terrain encounters, and your growing dead encounters. A little bit about transportation, because you can, in towns that are on railroads, you can get a railroad ticket to travel fast and safe. You can also, on towns that are next to rivers, you can get a steamboat to travel on rivers. And then one of the big things you do here is in the frontier town, in the town setup. And I think we're going to cover town setup in a different in the next video, because I do want to do an example, set up a town, so that way I can kind of, as we're going through the Hexcrawl videos, I can kind of show you how I would play my kind of sandbox campaign. And I think it's best if we just kind of work on some examples as we go through this book together. So yeah, this is a big one, guys. If you are into Shadows of Brimstone and you are not using Hexcrawl, you got to get into this, because it'll just elevate that game so much more and make each session really something special as you start to develop your you start to develop a connection to the world that really isn't there in the base game, that really isn't there in any other dungeon crawl that I know of. So, all right, well, that's it for the first video on Hexcrawl. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will be back for more. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.